Alrighty, so I think what I want to work on today is for the last little while I've been working on stuff related to handling kind of failed purchase fulfillments. So if someone buys something and their server is screwed up, trying to deal with that in some nice way. So part of that is going to be able to go into the interface and kind of like diagnose this sort of thing. Sounds like my audio is getting funky here. I'm going to stop streaming for 1 second. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Hope. Let me know if everything is good. But anyways, what I want to do is work on sort of the interface for being able to actually go in and diagnose some of these problems. So the way that that's going to generally work is through this sort of dashboard orders page that Steve, my design co-founder, has been putting together for me. So you're going to be able to come in here and kind of see a list of the purchases that happened, and anything that didn't go according to plan will probably have some sort of indicator or something showing that, so that you can dive in and kind of diagnose the problem and look at the webhook requests and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to build out this whole thing fully exactly like this, because that's going to be complicated. But I think it would be fun to sort of shift gears and do a little bit of front end stuff anyways, and just kind of mess around and put something together close to this that we can use to kind of flesh this out a little bit further. So to do that, I'm going to start by just kind of seeing what we have in the actual app. So if we go to kitetail.dev here, I have this dashboard page, which is nothing, and then this customers page, which this is basically going to be a better version of this original prototype. So I'm going to basically trash all this code and start with something fresh here instead. So I think what I'm going to do is add a new endpoint where we can just kind of put together this new template. So for now, let's not even... Well, we'll put it in the auth middleware group in case we forget. No, we're not, because we're going to write tests for the real thing eventually anyways. So let's just put it at like /orders for now. And we'll just have it return a view. We'll put some hard-coded data in that view while we just kind of work on the front end, driving out the template stuff. So I think all... I don't think any of my views or anything are like namespaced for the back end right now, but they're probably going to want to be eventually. But for now, let's just return like orders.index and go ahead and generate that view. Okay. So one thing that you might notice too is that right now all these templates are using kind of an older version of the design, and Steve has been working on sort of a refresh of all the branding. So it might be fun to use this as an opportunity to also kind of build out the general sort of back-end structure using some of this new design stuff, because front-end stuff sounds like a fun change of pace today. So let's take a look at maybe like the product index view and just kind of see. So we're extending layouts app, and then this has this section, which is going to be this subnav, which we'll still have here, and then like a content section. Okay, so let's copy this whole thing, paste it in here, get rid of any dynamic stuff, and just see what we end up with. So I'm going to call this dashboard like Steve has it here, although I don't think that's going to be the terminology that we end up keeping. And here we have this view component, this add product button, which it looks like we're going to put like a drop down to filter between your products there. So let's add a div with a select tag in there. Doesn't need an ID or anything. Barely even needs a name, really. This will end up probably being a view component too. And let's just stick like a placeholder option in there that says all products for now. And this will probably need a class. Okay, and then down here is where we start like looping over all of the different products and stuff. So I think because we want to build this fancy section, we basically are going to have to throw away this whole thing and just figure it out from scratch. Hello. I like putting little placeholder text in there so I know things are generally working. I'm not sure what you mean by styled components. So if you can explain that a little bit more, then I can tell you the answer that hopefully you're interested in. So this select box is a little messed up. I wonder why that is. Probably something to do with the fact that we're not accounting for the icon in the right padding of the form control, which is lame. So probably any select form controls are going to need to have like an additional padding on the right to make up for the size of the background image, which I'm not sure what that is right now. So it looks like currently we have like 0.75 rem. So if we just did like 1.5, and that would probably be enough. So why don't we just go and do that quickly? So let's look for the select here. And I also want to find out, am I using my spacers? I am. So let's make this a spacer 5. Cool. And refresh that and everything seems fine. All right, so I'm going to start by working on this header. So we'll just go to the actual app layout that we're extending and modify it for kind of everything, because the whole site's going to kind of want to change in this way anyways. So here's what we got. So if we look at the design, we're going to have this like top border now, which is kind of fancy because it has like it looks like it has like a gradient. So it'll be interesting to define this stuff. And I think that's the same gradient that we have here. So let's go to our let's go to our borders file. So I have this like border brand, which we use for anytime we want to have a solid color border that kind of matches the brand color. So I think I'm going to add like another helper similar to this, in case we still want to have the one that's just a solid color. But let's just call this border brand gradient. So can you do a gradient border color? First of all, is that even possible in CSS? Because I don't know if a back or a border color property can accept a gradient. Gradient border color CSS. Or are we going to have to make it a div with a background? So this is probably going to say, oh, border image. Interesting. All right, so that'll probably work. So let's just copy this. And let's move this whole thing down here. And I'm going to move the brand one down too, because I think if we ever use brand, we probably want it to override these ones if they happen to be there. Okay, so I don't even, the linear gradient syntax is probably the most confusing and unintuitive syntax in all of CSS. Like, first of all, since when is there stuff that happens outside of the parentheses? I didn't know you could do that. I thought like, I think we want to say to right, and then we want to start with whatever color Steve has here. So let's go to colors.less. And I have like this brand primary and a bunch of other colors here. I'm going to add a color. Let's see. Now, the other confusing thing is Sketch uses HSB, but CSS works better with HSL, which is not quite the same. And I do prefer to use like that style of color because it just makes more sense. Like the numbers actually have like some meaning that's logical that you can kind of manipulate in an intuitive way. But let's just say like color brand gradient start. And color brand gradient stop. I might refactor some of these names eventually, but let's just kind of get it working in a sane way. And we'll move those maybe underneath here. Steve's been using like slightly different colors than I had originally, but this is all part of the plan to eventually kind of figure all this stuff out. So let's just start by using these colors explicitly. Color brand gradient start, is that what we called it? And go to color brand gradient stop. Usually what I do in these files is I kind of assign new variables just for this file based on any of my global variables in case I ever want to change them, that I only need to change them in one place. But while we're just kind of getting this working, I think it's okay to do it this way. So now if we go back to this app layout, I think it's going to be there's a box shadow on that class, or on that element, which can probably go. I wonder what this div actually is. So that holds the subnav too. Okay. So that's going to be basically this whole section. So I think it's fair to keep the BG light. This BG black is going to go. The box shadow, I'm not sure what Steve has for some of the other stuff. It looks like he might have a subtle one here. Yeah, he does. So we can keep that. And let's just apply this border. So we'll say border brand gradient. It's going to be border T. And I think it's, I don't know what height this is. 3, which is not a border height that I currently have. So we'll go with 4. That'll be a border medium. And I guess let's just refresh it and see what this looks like now. So that gradient didn't work at all. So we have a border brand gradient. So I wonder why that's not appearing. Let's change this. Can we change just pieces of this? No? Okay. So I wonder what this 1 and 100% does. Let's try adding that back. Again, the linear gradient syntax is not intuitive at all. So what does that even do? If I add any value there, it seems to work, but I don't know what that value does. MDN linear gradient. I like that Google understands my typos. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, so I mean, this is sort of the syntax that I was trying to go for that I thought would work. Man, this website is very hard to understand just skimming it sometimes. So what does the values outside of the linear gradient mean? Is there even examples of that? Doesn't appear to be examples of that. Yeah, oh, border image one. Got it. Border image. CSS MBN border image. Border image is not something I ever really use. So I'm learning. Like, what is this? How do they think this is like an intuitive way to tell you basically what the parameters are? Like, which one is which here? Because look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things here, but only 1, 2, 3, 4 things here. Yeah, the example at the top, I just don't know, what does 30 mean? Is that the slice or is it the width? And is this 30 the width or is it the outset? What a confusing property. It just seems so bizarre to me that it seems like I can basically put any value I want here and it doesn't make any difference. So I'm just trying to understand, if I just do stretch, will that do it like with nothing else? No? So it needs something. Height, width, repeat. Okay, so it's just weird that it says it doesn't seem like anything I do here makes a difference. And when I put like a value that seems sane to me, like 100%, it doesn't work. But 100 works. 10,000 doesn't work. 1 and 100 are the same. So this actually says that it's setting the border image slice, which I don't know what border image slice does. So what does border image slice mean? Man, this is depressing. I just like, so I don't care that I can put any value here, you know? I just wish I knew, like, what's a value that makes sense to put here? Like, should I just put 1 and then move on? Like, it seems like I should just put 1 and then move on. But I find it kind of confusing. Yeah, okay, well, we'll just roll with it. But I would like to understand, I really would like to understand what that value means. Divides the image specified by border image source in 9 regions. The 4 corners, the 4 edges, and the middle. 4 values control the position of the 9 slices. Man, this is some hardcore stuff that is not what I want to be concerned about right now. I guess 1 works. We'll roll with 1. Anyways, back to more interesting things. So we have this icon, which I don't think Steve is done with, but let's extract it anyways, and mess around with it a little bit. So it has a gradient fill too. It has 2 fills, and they both seem to actually matter slightly, but whatever. Sure, Steve. Let's export this to SVG. And where are we? I can go in here. We'll call it KiteTail mark.svg. Make sure that's Yeah, and let's go and optimize it. There's like nicer ways to do this by using like a sketch plugin, but I'm too lazy to learn how to install the sketch plugin. So this always works fine for me. Prettify. I don't mind the white space. I just want to get rid of everything that's completely useless. Okay, so back to our layout here. And marketing partials, KiteTail logo. So I think we can actually go ahead and copy or move this SVG into our resources directory. Resources, views, that's not really marketing. Icons. Where should we put it? I'm going to put it in icons. Because I have some other SVG stuff in there. And then we can include it in a slightly nicer way. Okay. I like being able to use Blade for SVG stuff because then I can like pass parameters into the actual SVG, which is kind of nice. So you can see I do that here with this icon by allowing you to just like pass in a style sort of override. So I think we can do the same thing here. Just copy this and make it possible to pass in a style and a class. Sometimes inline styles are not the worst thing. If you're literally just doing something that only needs to be done once and it's like a real challenge to come up with a name for a class that only gets used once because it doesn't really deserve a name, I usually prefer to just inline this style. So this way now we can at least pass in, we'll start with a style for setting the width. And we'll just say it's like 2 rem or something. And just see what happens. Whoops. Marketing, it's not in marketing. Okay. So that's looking pretty fine. Feels like we picked a reasonable size even. Yeah. Okay. So there's a bunch of text and stuff up here that we can't see anymore. Let's go back to Steve's design here and think about how it's going to work. So it looks like we could do this with Flexbox. It's tricky because I think this needs to be like perfectly centered regardless of what the size of this and this is. If we use flex spaced, this is going to be slightly offset if this is smaller than this. So we might need to give each one of these the same fixed box size, but we'll figure that out as we go. So we'll change this to, what was it? Orders, products, discounts. Discounts isn't a real thing yet, but we'll get there. And I'm just going to break all these links for now. And these are not going to be link light soft anymore. It looks like they're going to be link dark soft, or just link soft or link muted maybe. See what we get. Coming along, it looks like Steve went a little bolder, so we can probably make all of these like weight medium. Let's confirm though. Bold. Doesn't look that bold to me. That looks about right. I think they need to be fainter though. Muted. Yeah. We'll have to go back and eventually pick out the exact new kind of base typography colors and stuff, but this will be fine. Let's get this at the size that we want here. Okay. So the header now has a border at the bottom of it. And we have this user icon thing. So, oh man, this is a shape. So let's export that as well. I'll get Steve to do better versions of these eventually, but just get it going. Asset, no, not assets, views. I guess we'll just keep dumping stuff on icons. So what do we call this? Like account .blade.php, something like that. Use both, but that's not what I want. Dump this in here again. Prettify, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Didn't work. Huh? Bizarre. Okay. And we'll just include that as is. So we got flexed space, everything's vertically centered. We've got this div, which is currently it's holding the navigation and the icon, but we don't want that anymore. So this navigation is going to have to get pulled out into a separate flex item. And here where we have like sign out, we're just going to replace this whole div with something that includes our KiteTail mark. Sorry, our account. And let's just make it the exact same width so we get that centering for free. And see where we're at. Is it there? It might need a color. What's going on? Did we, no. Okay. Doot. 0 by 0. Yeah, because we have to do our little trick to get the, to allow us to parameterize the class and style. So let's do that too. Okay. All right. So this doesn't look centered because the icons are invisible. So we should grab Steve's icons at some point, but for now, let's just keep the ones that are there and just set the color to be visible. So this will have to be text, dark, faint, I think. If we want to be able to. It's funny that this is actually a lighter color than the text, but like you would never think that by just looking at it. Cool. Does seem a little bit off center, but I think it's probably not actually. I mean, is this gap? That's what, 266-ish? Yeah, something's not right. Okay, let's figure it out. So that. Oh, what's in here taking up space? Oh, it's got margin on the right. Okay, let's get rid of that. And this doesn't even need any class now. Maybe just like a link plane, just to make sure that it doesn't accidentally get styled. Yeah, that's looking better. Cool. Okay, so now we want to add a this little border at the bottom. So that's just going to go on the flex parent here. So we can throw a border B on there, and there we have it. And how much padding is there here? Do we only have top padding on something? So this has... Why is this Okay, so let's think about this. So we got padding on this whole nav, which I think the problem is that this just shouldn't be on this element. Now let's move that to this element and get rid of the class here. And now that looks like a little bit too much. So let's try 3. And it seems kind of funky too, because it seems like things are getting pushed down off the bottom. So that's 32 by 32, 32 by 32. So why is this icon touching the top there, but not the bottom? Okay, so this probably needs to get display block. Does that make a difference in the height? No, so that's still getting a height of 39. So it might be a line height thing. Now it has a height of 35 still. But this is 32 by 32. I wonder why. Line height 0. Kind of bizarre. I wonder if I make this display inline flex, then things get really funky. Okay. The line height 0 thing is kind of a sad hack to have to make. I wonder how I can make this link not really worry about that. Is it because this has a display inline? Okay, so the SVG needs to have a display block. That'll fix our whole problem, I think. Let's see what we get now. Yep, that fixed it. Okay. So this is still 3. That seems better. I think we need to do the same thing with this SVG. So let's head down here and add a block class. If I could type, that would be ideal. Yeah, okay, that's looking a lot better. It's not a real LESS framework, it's a secret LESS framework. That is still not that great. That needs improvement, but it'll get there. I think we might be able to bump this back up to 4 now. See what Steve thinks, but I think that looks okay. That's too much. Sad. Okay, that'll do. This might even end up having to get smaller. I don't know what his sizes are relative to this stuff. So he's got this set at 32 by 32. He's using a font size of what here? 16. And I'm using I'm not using a font quite that small or quite that big here. I think I'm using 14 because I think I have it set to text small somewhere here. So if we were to just get rid of this. Feels kind of big. Sorry, Steve. I'm keeping it the way I had it. So maybe this needs to be smaller too. Maybe it's just because I'm using a ridiculously low resolution on this monitor, which I'm not used to. Let's pretend that that's the issue. Okay. So what weight are we using here? Regular. That's font size 20. Do we have a 20? This is 22. I don't know if that is going to cooperate with our typography scale. I only have an 18 or a 22. Whatever do we do? Let's just keep it at 22 for now. And it is probably going to be text dark soft. Let's see. That's going to be in our index thing here. Text dark soft. Seems about right. Thanks, Alex. I will look at that after this stream is done and hopefully things will make sense. Okay, so next up is this fancy pants gradient thing. Now, one thing that is going to be really interesting is figuring out how this is going to work. We'll have to come up with a clever class name for this overlay thing. So let's go to our backgrounds.less file. So I do have some overlay stuff already. So, what do you know? Let's do, man, I'm so inconsistent. BG prime, I use primary in some cases and brand in other places. So we'll try and improve on that. BG brand gradient. So we'll just copy the gradient we used in the border file without this stupid one, because this one actually makes sense. And we can just do that and be done. Okay, so this will go, let's think about where this fits in the hierarchy. So like there's this header, and then I guess this will be part of the container that holds all of this stuff. So we'll put that down in the main content area. So we're going to need a .bg brand gradient. Then inside of that, we're going to need a container, because you can see that it gets cut off at the edges, and that's where the actual content goes. These fucking borders are going to be annoying to do in a way that doesn't feel dirty. So inside this container, I guess we have a row with 3 columns. We could use Flexbox for this too, but in this case it seems fine to just do it this way. So what will they be? When, let's just do call for, I can't even remember how my own grid system works. So let me just find out. Yeah, so that should be right. And let's just put some text in here and see what we generally get here. Okay, so we have some unfortunate margin or something happening there. So I wonder if that's coming from, it's coming from this content area. So we're going to have to trash this class, which is sad, but what can you do? And let's just put some text in there and see what we get. Okay, so I'm just going to make these span tags or p tags, who cares? And we'll put some reasonable-ish numbers in there. Let's just copy Steve's. Why not? And then 11, 14, 72. And these are probably going to be huge. So that's font size 30. So we do have a 30. That's XXL. Cool. Text XXL. Text light. And yeah, we will have to do it at that level because this looks like it's slightly faded out. So let's just see what we get. Whoa, too bold. So this must be, it's font weight regular, but this regular doesn't feel like regular. So I think we're going to have to reduce the weight on that. I think it's because Sketch uses anti-aliasing instead of subpixel anti-aliasing for its rendering. So we could either switch the whole site to use regular anti-aliasing, or we could switch the weight. So I'll try the weight first because that's less browser specific. Typography utilities. So we'll try weight light. And honestly, I think that'll be fine. Obviously, we need some padding here, though. So on this whole thing, let's add a... I don't think we actually want it on the whole thing. We want it on each one of these. That's annoying. Okay, so each one of these columns is going to need some padding at the top. And I don't really like screwing with an element that has column styles applied to it, because you can break the grid if you're not careful. But let's just see. The vertical padding shouldn't really mess anything up. Okay, so we're going to have total revenue yesterday and today so far. And select this so we can cleverly get down here. And what do we got for our font size? 16, so it's just a regular font size. And is this semi-transparent? Yeah, so we'll go with text, light, soft maybe. Let's see where that gets us. Man, it still looks so big compared to this one. It probably needs to be, yeah. Okay. Looks like we might have to reduce the line height on each one of these too. What do I got for line height utilities? LH tight. I guess that'll have to do. It's just kind of sketching things out here and see where we get. Still feels like not tight enough. And I think we actually need more padding. Let's try 5. Yeah, this section at the bottom, I am not quite sure how to build in a sane way. Just trying to think that through, because the content should go in this container. But we need that overlay to bleed out over here, which is kind of tough to do. So I think we might have to just like have 2 rows, and there's going to be like an implicit relationship between the first column and each row, which sucks. Like, I would much rather put all this content in the same container, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that without resorting to basically adding this as an overlay div to the background and making it a specific height, and basically trying to trick the browser into making it look like it's a container for this text. That sounds worse to me than having 2 rows. So I'm going to try the 2 rows first. And actually it has to be 2 entire. Basically I need another container here that's like a BG overlay. If that is even right, BG overlay soft. I don't know, it seems fine. That's probably not going to be enough. It's probably not going to make it dark, or it might make it too dark, I mean. And then inside here, now I need another container and all this stuff. So I'm just going to paste this all in and just kind of generally find out if this is doing remotely what we want. Yeah, see, that's way too dark. But it is generally what we want. So if I wanted to follow my naming scheme that I'm starting to get really sick of, this would be like BG overlay faint or something stupid like that. And we can just pick an arbitrary value for that. And that looks closer. I mean, we could even go more, I think. Maybe like 1.5. Yeah, something like that. Designers, man. Always doing the funkiest things. Okay, so is this a base font size? Yeah. So we got 2108, 4, and 6. throw this in a strong tag. And are we going to need to do anything fancy there? Probably just text light. Four and 6. Want to see a cool Sublime trick? I'm using this Ace Jump plugin that I'm trying to get used to using, but I haven't used it at all yet so far today. But it has this, basically I can do Command Shift quote, I think. And then down here it lets me type any character on the screen that I want to jump to. So in this case I want to get to this 2 here. So I can type 2, and that's going to highlight every 2 that appears, and then I hit whatever key character it shows there and it'll jump me there. So if I hit C, I jump to this 2. So say I wanted to get back up to like this L because I wanted to edit the contents of this class. I can do Command Shift quote L, E, and now I'm there and I can start changing it. It's kind of like magical. You can jump around the whole screen however you like. Man, that looks so bold. Okay, so we'll keep the strong tag for semantic purposes. Ugh. But we'll give it only a medium weight. Something like that. And I think we need way less padding on this one. Go with like PY3, maybe even less. I think we need less. 2. And I almost want to reduce this one as well. 4, not 43. My audio in my headphones is starting to crackle, so hopefully it's not crackling for everyone. So the thing that I'm worried about right now is I want to add a left border to each column, but I'm pretty sure that's going to screw up everything, and I need padding inside them as well. But you don't want to change the padding on the column itself. So that's basically why I was considering adding like another div inside of each one of these. And moving like this PY4 class there as well. And then maybe like a PX6. And then like a border. See, if I put the border on here, though, this is going to be wrong. Oh, it actually put the border in the right spot. That surprises me. Especially the first one. Oh, because my column paddings sit outside of the container. So that actually works. What do my border colors look like? Are they transparent or are they hard-coded grays? Border light color. I think they're going to be hard-coded grays, which is going to suck because we'll need like something that blends better. So this is where I start needing like more and more fancy combinations of things. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. All right, we'll do like a. We'll make a new class for now, and then one day I'll think if I can simplify this. Border light overlay. So something that's designed to kind of blend with the background a little bit. So we'll do like a HSLA of 255, 0.5 to start, and just kind of see what that gets us. Border L, border light overlay. Things are getting gruesome. That's probably close to what Steve had. Now this is shit too because we have to put that on both, but if we put it on this one, it's going to be a different color because it's overlaid on top of a different color. Ugh. But maybe that's right actually. What does this look like? Yeah, those are different colors. So maybe that's correct. So here we have 183, 61, 57. And yeah, okay, so that's right. You can see if we zoom in crazy far, this is darker than this one. So that is the correct behavior. Okay, so we're actually safe, I hope. So we're going to have to copy this much and create another div, move this up, delete that, add a class, move that py2 in there, because why not if we have to have the other container anyways. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that's looking pretty close to what Steve kind of has mocked up for us here. I'm kind of curious what it looks like if I go back to one of these other pages. I mean, it's fine. I'm going to have to add that padding to the container that this actually uses. But that's okay. Yeah, so we're getting there. So maybe let's just do, I'm going to pretend that these like don't exist, I think, for the purposes of this. And we'll just do like a full width kind of table view underneath there for now. So underneath this beastie thing, we'll add another div. This one will have, I think, whatever padding we used to have here, py6. For autocomplete, I'm not actually using anything fancy. I'm using this package called all autocomplete. So it's not like language intelligent, like it doesn't know anything about PHP or anything like that. All it knows is it looks for strings that exist in all open files. So normal Sublime autocomplete only looks for words in the current file. This scans every open tab, which is just one of those things where that happens to correlate pretty strongly with the sorts of things you need auto-completed. So it ends up being quite helpful, even though as a general like heuristic, it probably isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. Okay, so let's add this table here, and we'll just build it out of utilities to start. Tables are brutal. So I'm not going to build this as a real table, I don't think, because we want to be able to make the whole thing a link and stuff like that, and that's just going to be easier if we don't do it that way. But it is going to be a pain in terms of getting these columns to always be the same width, especially when some of these have more characters than others and certain characters are different widths. So we're going to have to do something stupid like reserving a specific amount of space for that column. That's kind of grim, but we'll do what we can. So we're gonna have like a BG light here with like a border rounded, and we're also gonna want to make sure that we crop the corners because there's gonna be child content. So I do have this card thing, which basically does that. So why don't we call this a card for now. And then we're going to have another div with an orders heading here. And I guess we'll make that like an H2. Do we have an H1 on here already? It's out. This could probably be an H1. And is there anything else there? No. So this probably needs a class of like py4 vertical padding. And then for each, I'm just going to arbitrarily repeat the same exact text like 15 times. we want just a bunch of these. Let's just kind of see what we even have here so far. Need a container. HTML. It's pretty boring. Looks like we want left padding too. So I wonder if I can get away with making this. I have this card section subcomponent thing. Wonder if that's going to give us close to what we're looking for. It'll add a border too, I think. It's probably going to be too much, but we'll start with that. And we have a bunch of those, and those don't have borders, so that's bizarre. Okay, and I think I'm actually going to make this even smaller for now. I use these constrain classes pretty often, which I find are a helpful kind of addition to just standard like grid columns and stuff that just kind of let me set things to arbitrary sizes. So I have like, I guess 6 of them here. So this will keep things, you know, some standard small width, some standard, or sorry, extra small, you know, all the way up to giant. And this is helpful for like wrapping text in certain places and stuff like that in a way that feels reasonable. So that gives us like an orders table that's a little bit narrower. It's kind of weird that it doesn't go to the edges, but again, it'll be better once we have the whole cards in the sidebar and stuff. So I think this card needs a box shadow. And does Steve have a border on it? I think it's just like a pretty hardcore box shadow. So I have this other box shadow that maybe will be better. Too hardcore. We'll just, I don't think he has a border on that. No. Just roll with that for now. These card section classes are not going to be right. Okay. Let's change that to like PY4, PX5 or something. It's probably okay. And then let's just like make up a fake order here. So we're gonna have a date in this bizarre date format. Steve's Canadian, so he shouldn't be using this date format. So we'll probably do that same padding here. Definitely the horizontal padding at least has to be the same. And we'll make this flex spaced. It's going to have 3 divs. And the first one is going to have the date. So let's put that in a span so we can kind of style it in a reasonable way. And I'm going to put programmer style dates that, you know, we actually like to read. And the next one is going to have an email and product name. Okay, so we'll just do someone@example.com. And we'll just use Steve's product here. It's not actually a table. It's Flexbox inside arbitrary div. It's still like hard to say, like maybe we should just use like a real table for this, but the thing that makes me concerned about that is I want to be able to wrap this whole row in like an anchor tag, and that's not going to really be easy if we use a real table. We have to use some JavaScript. So I'm going to try and do it this way, and if we decide later like this would be way easier if we just used a real table, then we can consider that instead. So let's just put some stuff in here, like a price that they have paid. And then the currency, And there it is. And this should probably be class text right. And then a bunch of really faint text in a lot of places. So I might as well make this a p tag since we're using that everywhere else. Text dark muted. Let's try that to start. I think it needs to be smaller too. What's text size is this? 14. That's 14, 16, 16 please. Yes. And 14. And this is 14. Okay, that's fine. So this will be text small. It's hard to type with a microphone in my face. Text small. Text small. And what else needs to change color? The currency and all the weights definitely look messed up. I wonder if I could. It feels like this doesn't need to be as black as it is. Again, it's really just a font weight thing. If we were to go and just change this whole site to be WebKit font smoothing, anti-aliased, all of a sudden everything looks more like it does in Sketch, because that's the anti-aliasing strategy that Sketch uses. So everything looks thinner, which is kind of nice, except this doesn't work in Internet Explorer or Firefox. So you're only kind of fooling yourself. You're making yourself think your site has these like nice, sexy thin weights, but really it doesn't. So it's probably better to explicitly change those weights if that's what I actually care to do. So yeah, I don't know. If we just did this is probably going to like get us closer. So yeah. Anyways, going for a little over an hour now, but I think we've, for the most part, got pretty close to building out, the key elements of this layout that Steve has for us. And we didn't have to write a ton of CSS to do it, which was nice. Mostly just doing stuff in the DOM. And if it turns out that some of these patterns start to become more repetitive, and like we start having more tables like this or more sections like this, then I would probably start extracting some higher level components. But to get started, I think this kind of utility driven approach where we just kind of sketch things out and design them with existing CSS in the browser is a good way to go. And if we ever do want to create abstractions around this stuff, less makes it really easy, which is cool. Like say that we decided this combination of styles was something that we had often. I could just do something like dot table, paste all these in. Oop, dot. Oh, too many dots. Oh man, I failed at being fancy. And then if I went back to here, I could just change this to a class table. And we get the same output anyways. This is one of the reasons I like less a lot more than Sass, because it makes it easy for me to take these combinations of styles and kind of like evolve them into a component by just building the component out of the utilities that I used originally. So just if I start finding myself duplicating this in a ton of different files, I can extract that duplication up into a new class, basically, that composes itself of those utilities. So that's kind of my CSS workflow and the reason I like less a lot. So yeah, I'm going to do another one of these on Tuesday. So hopefully this was interesting. Definitely, a little bit different than doing all the test-driven development, back-end PHP stuff. But I get a lot of satisfaction out of working on the front end and HTML and CSS stuff too. So hopefully you learned a trick or two and thought it was interesting. Let me know in the comments on the video if you're enjoying these streams, or via Twitter, or via email, whatever works for you. And I'll see you guys next week. Cool. Have a good weekend, everyone.